Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar presented by FME US, and FME Group. Hopefully my audio is good and you can all hear me okay. Today we're covering an overview of the OpenText D2 Life Sciences solution. It's actually a start to a series of webinars that will continue over the next months. We'll have one per month following for each module. Okay, so our agenda today, again, it's that overview of the D2 Life Sciences solution. So there are 4 modules in the solution if you're not familiar, and we'll get into all of them today. And we'll talk a little bit about who FME is if you're not familiar. And then a little bit about migrating to the OpenText D2 Life Science solution, just at a high level. This can be discussed after, of course, as well. And we'll open up to Q&A. So I'm Larissa Primavera. I'm Sales Director here at our FME US team. And our special guest presenter is Frank Dentrone, President of FME US. And just on the housekeeping side, we have you in listen-only mode, so please note that we cannot hear you. And at the end of the session, you can surely direct questions to the chat if you have any inquiries for us, and we will answer them accordingly. And this session is being recorded today, so you can feel free and share it with other members of your team or go back and view anything you might have missed. So with that, Frank, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Larissa, for the introduction. And I'll give a little background of myself. So my name is Frank Dentrone, President of FME here in the U.S., responsible for FME for U.S. and Canada, actually. My background goes pretty deep in enterprise content management. I've started in the world, if you will, since 1998, so kind of showing my age a little bit. But have a lot of industry experience in life science, and definitely excited to share an overview of the OpenText D2 Life Sciences suite today. But I first want to start with a little background of FME, just to for those who are not as familiar with us, give you a little substance of who we are. And then we'll jump into the details of the topic today. Again, the D2 Life Sciences Suite from OpenText. So FME, we're a partner for digital transformation. So we are focused in the digital transformation area, predominantly in life sciences and industrial manufacturing industries. And we also say more because we do provide, technical capability or skills around other industries. But from a best practice and industry experience, we do have real strength in life sciences and industrial manufacturing, which we'll talk a little bit about today. In addition to that, which is the main essence of today's topic, is enterprise content management, or ECM. We also have skills and investment areas in business intelligence, cloud, big data, social collaboration, and in many cases, some of our clients are bringing us opportunities around some tailored development, but that would be, outside of the scope of our discussion today. And I'll skip forward a little bit here. We're founded in 1995, so been in place for many years, and we're approximately 190 employees globally. We have offices throughout Germany, a few locations. We have an office in Romania, and our office in the U.S., which again, Larissa and I are spearheading, and we're in the Northeast, we're in Connecticut. And the last bullet here, bit of a funny line here, but we take it serious actually, and we do strive to be the vendor, the partner that you love to work with, and that's something that we do strive for that. So let's dive into the material. So we just come off of Enterprise World. So we were all at OpenText Enterprise World about a week ago. And I was looking through the material and through the experiences I had in that show, and wanted to pull together a couple of things that I think were relevant for today's topic. And really looking at the market dynamics. So from a life sciences perspective, we see the increase, in pace of the business change with different regulations, things of that nature are ever changing, and businesses need to align and adapt to those ever-changing business environment. Also looking at the commoditization and innovation. So looking at innovation from a business perspective and technology. So that's another dynamic. And then you have, the customer, the expectation from the end user or client, and the social connection. Social technologies are on the forefront from the user's usability and usage of technology. and also looking at shorter product life cycles, bringing capability or technology that is evolving and adapting to those business changes is critical. So these four quadrants, if you will, really are encompassing the market dynamic that we see today. And also digital transformation for life sciences. So some interesting facts. So on average, most life sciences companies are less than 40% digitized. So what does that mean? We have a lot of information that is not digitized, that can't be harnessed. So how can we improve that, with innovation and growth, but still maintaining, the compliance, the requirements, and stakeholder satisfaction, within the user community, within the life sciences organization. So these are the things that are near and dear to our heart, as a partner and implementation partner for our clients in life science. These are the types of challenges that we're helping customers solve on a day-to-day basis, leveraging the OpenText portfolio and platform, in particular, the D2 Life Sciences suite itself. So life sciences in the digital world. So looking at, enterprise information management helps to embrace that digital disruption. So looking to, in order to optimize, reinvent, and accelerate, right, to today's and tomorrow's digital life sciences businesses. So looking to optimize things on a day-to-day basis, being able to share information on a global scale, looking to reinvent potentially, clinical, manufacturing, supply chain, business processes. So really embracing information from a digital perspective, and also lastly, accelerating, being able to make decisions in an accelerated way across various quality and manufacturing operations. So this through improved reporting and also analytic capabilities. So these are the things that are really making up, the digital age, generally speaking, but more importantly, in a life sciences perspective. So another piece of information I think is very important to know, if you're not that familiar with the OpenText Documentum portfolio, the life sciences portfolio, is that OpenText has been, life sciences industry-leading content management platform for, about 25 years or more. And 100% of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies use the OpenText Documentum platform. So that just shows you the adoption of the portfolio of the technology in those large pharmaceutical companies. So that's something to certainly to glean on. And 95% of the top 50 pharmaceutical companies use the OpenText Documentum platform as well. And in addition to that, 90% of the top biotech companies use OpenText Documentum. So this is just some interesting metrics, if you will, to get a feel of the adoption rate for this technology, this portfolio in life sciences across, the different areas within the life sciences community. So I have this slide, which for those who are familiar with the Documentum portfolio for years now, you'll see that, we've come a long way. So just some screenshots to show some progression. So on the upper left corner, you see that web experience for those who are familiar with WebTop. So that's on the upper left corner. And then you see the life sciences suite, which is right in the middle, which we're going to talk a lot about today. And then you see on the bottom right that life sciences suite, which is more the Express, more the web, more or less the lead portfolio, if you will, for mobility and cloud. And then you have your device. You see the iPhone on the bottom right corner. So you can see the progression of the UI experience over the course of time. And where we are today is really that mobile experience, that mobility experience with the end user community around content management, in particular to the life sciences industry and many other industries as well. So I wanted to give a little highlight of the OpenText Documentum D2 Life Sciences Solution Suite itself. So we have the four modules. We have the clinical, the TMF trial master file. We have in regulatory, and we're going to touch on each of these in the course of this webinar. We have the R&D module, we have the submission store and view, and we have quality, which is the Q&M module. But underneath that portfolio, that suite of modules is founded on industry best practices and standards. So the whole premise of the solution stack for the life sciences suite is based off the DIA, the EDM reference model, and there's a number of reference models that have a variety of document inventory on how you manage certain types of documents within those business areas like clinical, regulatory, and quality. And that's something that you get that was modeled into the product. So you get a prepackaged solution that has adapted those industry requirements and best practices so that you can leverage that out of the box. And underneath that layer, that best practice layer, is where the OpenText Documentum suite provides a number of standard practices around lifecycle and workflow, adapting your security model based on the type of information that you're managing within that module. Also, the ability to manage metadata appropriately based on common master data elements like product information, clinical trial information, regulatory application information, or submission sequence information. All of that is modeled into the suite and what I classify as master data in many respects. But we're going to see a little bit of that in an upcoming slide. I kind of touch on that a little bit around the master data. And then the compliance features, having that auditability and dealing with auditability, documents that may be submittable or inspectable. It's critical from a compliance perspective, and we could talk a little bit about that towards the latter part of the webinar. And again, underneath all of that is a D2 technology layer, which provides that configurability, which is down here in the platform stack. And then underneath that D2 configuration layer, you have the Documentum, strength as the underlying repository that's providing that technology capability up the stack. And at the very most bottom, we have FME, and as a partner of OpenText and implementation partner for a number of our life science customers, we're bringing a variety of implementation services to accelerate that adoption and implementation of this portfolio, where we bring deployment services, our migration capability. I have a couple of slides on that towards the end of the webinar, and then our know-how around the implementation and validation, which I'm going to mention as a latter slide in the webinar. And then at the lowest part, the operation and support capability of our offering. So the Life Sciences Suite, some general features and capability to give you a little substance on what's under the covers. And what I've noted down in this slide is around the predefined business rules around workflow and lifecycle and security, permission control. So part of the suite is a set of workflows that predominantly are leveraged across the suite. So you have review and approval, you have approval. Those are common, and also collaborative editing, where you can interact with content in parallel with different authors. So these are workflows that are available across the suite. And then in particular to the Q&M module, there's some subtle variances in addition to that around the quality aspects for change control, things of that nature, which we will get in more depth in our follow-up webinar series when we focus just on Q&M. But I just want to give you some substance that there's a predefined set of workflows based on best practices that are common across the suite, and then there might be some subtle variances around workflow across each module that pertain specifically to the context of what that module is bringing to the business. In addition to that, on the upper right corner, we have our pre-configured workspaces. So the platform and the solution is predominantly role-based, so based on your role within the organization and the module in which that you're utilizing. And again, you can be a quality manufacturing user and an R&D user, or an R&D user that leverages the submission store and view for managing published output. Again, based on your permissioning and the role you play, you'll get an experience, which in this case would be a workspace or more than one workspace, so that you can interact with the system in the context and the role that you play within your organization. And that's something we'll get into much deeper into the individual webinar modules that we're going to be providing. From a hierarchical perspective, in terms of documentation, I mentioned earlier, it's founded off the DIA reference models, and that model has been embraced and adopted, ingrained into the solution. And this is just an example of what that kind of framework looks like. So you have, a domain area, for example, clinical. You have a group and a subgroup, which would be, in this example, just to give you an illustration, biopharmaceutical study reports, and then that subgroup, which is bioavailability, and then the actual document that you're managing, and the nomenclature would be artifact name, would be a report body. And there's a vast inventory of artifacts that you can look at even on the, if you go onto the DI, the EDM models that are online, and you compare and contrast that, again, it's been adopted into this portfolio, and actually OpenText Documentum is very involved in that, in the development of those models, those DI reference models. So let's go to some other portions of the portfolio to give you some examples, and then I have some additional slides that focus on each module, touching on some key characteristics, and then if there's at the end, hopefully there's some questions. I'll be happy to field any that come up within the group here. So the suite, the search, which I think this is a really useful, usability benefit in the portfolio and the technology. And again, this is common across the suite, is to leverage faceted searches. So this is baked into the configuration out of the box. So based on the module, there's a preset faceted configuration. So you can do a search on a particular product, and you could see, is that product, if it's a procedure or a quality manufacturing document that has context to a product or some other metadata criteria, you would be able to see that in this applicable site. For example, on the right-hand corner, you see, what documents based on the criteria have shown up, and you'll see what sites are available for that search criteria, what type of group, subgroup combination, what kind of documents or artifacts, and what statuses, and you could drill in. So that's that experience that most today in the modern day technologies that people are expecting. And I think this is a extreme benefit for the adoption rate of this suite. This is one portion of that. The advanced search, you could do full text search, which I'm not going to get into great length today, but the full text search capability again rolls up to a faceted experience, and query forms if you wanted to get to a quick access to content. There's a variety of what they call query forms, which are little search boxes that pops up a screen and asks you for a piece of criteria, and you can get to documentation at a glance really fast. And we'll get into that when we get into the individual demos and follow-ups with the other webinar series module. So here we have our quality and manufacturing, just an overview. So we have on the screen, you'll see an example, a UI screenshot of the cabinet folder structure. And then here I put together just some examples of the type of information that can be managed in the quality manufacturing module. You have SOPs and policies or work instructions, which you would imagine are there, but there's additional things that are in their training material. In the med device area, you have device history file or device master record, or there's a whole medical device configuration built into the Q&M module that actually there's a lot of capability in there. And I've worked with a number of device customers that see a lot of value in this particular configuration that has been actually enhanced quite a bit in the recent release. And watermarking and control printing. So these are just summary of capability. There's a lot more capability that's part of this module, but I just wanted to give you a sample, a summary of what's possible at a glance. And again, we'll get into more of that outside of this sort of summary webinar. Here's another, as I mentioned earlier, experience, a workspace for authors. So I'm logged in this screenshot as an author, and I can contribute and consume content. It's where I'm creating content, and I can see folder nav, and I see a number of things on the screen. And also on the upper right corner, you see as an author different views. We're looking at a browse view right now, but if I was collaborating in a workflow, I would be able to click on my tasks view and see what tasks, workflow activities that were assigned to me. And also at the bottom, you see a number of tabs, what you would call widgets. So if someone says widget, what the widget is, one of these panels. It's a panel of information. And there's a variety of widget or panels here that gives you more information about a document that I selected, like what workflows have been completed. Is it in a running workflow? What folder is this document linked to? If it was a global procedure, it could be linked into multiple folders, potentially multiple site folders. So you would see what locations, if it was linked in more than one folder, versions, etc. So there's a number of things that I can explain here, but this is just a cursory view of what that experience would look like from an author point of view. So here we have properties or metadata on a procedure. Again, everything I'm showing you is out of the box. We have, an SOP with an auto number, and that number can be adjusted to start or have a certain sequence. So this is configurable. You have your title and an additional metadata that puts context and structure to that SOP, as well as down here you'll see, what language is there training required, and by default, all of the SOPs require training. But this is just an example metadata to show you what metadata is available and what would be searchable, as I said, in that faceted or advanced search that we talked about a little while ago. So here's another experience, UI experience as a reviewer. And again, these experiences as an author and a reviewer is a common experience that you'll see across the suite. So users that are going to leverage more than one module, that experience is more or less the same fundamentally, except for the particular documentation you're managing may have different metadata characteristics, of course. There might be subtleties in the workflow if it's between a Q&M and SOP versus a clinical study document. But again, the experience is very much the same, and the adaptability from an end user would be streamlined because that experience is the same. And what we've seen in customers, they'll have like a core set of training which covers roles, but at a high level, it'll cover the baseline experience. So there's a training approach that we've worked with customers that certainly can be shared with the group. So here we're going to talk a little bit about the eTMF, just again at a glance, where you can create documents around your electronic trial master file, and there's an entire inventory and the ability to handle your clinical trials at different levels, like global site specific or country specific. So there's a whole suite of capability that we won't get into great length today, but this is just an example, where you can organize documents by products and study numbers, and there's a variety of clinical study metadata that you associate that's searchable on your content, and you can then collect and synchronize documents, across, your sponsors and CROs and different sites. So R&D, I just put some samples here. There's actually a lot more domain areas in the R&D module, but we'll get into that when we talk directly about the R&D module in the follow-up webinar. But here you can manage and create, review and approval of regulatory submission documentation. You have author review and approval processes, that registration form data, which I have a slide that shows you what that looks like. And that's where you can store your master data, your product information, your project or drug project registration form data, which I'm going to show you in a second. And then you can have your regulatory submissions registered, and also your sequences for publishing. And all of that is what they have in what they call registration form. And all of that enables you to have a common metadata model that's associated to your documentation. So harmonizing, what's a product, consistent product naming conventions, same with the other master data elements like regulatory applications, et cetera, are critical for search, retrieval, and consumption. And having that source of truth to information in your repository is critical. So here's an example of the regulatory master data, the registration forms. So there's a model here. You have your product information, which then you can have one or more products that are associated to one or more non-clinical studies or your drug projects. So there's a relational model here. But at the end of the day, you have your products, your non-clinical studies, your clinical studies, your drug projects. And then here you have your regulatory activity, your applications, where you're going to get your agency approval, your approval number associated to your regulatory applications. And then you can also have your submission, you register your submission sequences here, and then you have your regulatory activity interaction with regulatory agencies, and that can be tracked here as well. And at the end of the day, this all ties back to your published output and your submitted content. So you have that correlation between your authored content all the way through your submitted content and the correlation between it, as well as the ability, what I'm going to show you in a moment here, the submission store and view module. So your published output would be loaded into the suite so that you can navigate your ECTDs or your published output. And I have a few screenshots that gives you what that looks like, which segues me perfectly into SSV. So here, delivering a complete view of your regulatory activity, so your submissions, your associated communication like correspondence, linked to your submission or your regulatory activity, Your archive submissions are associated to your authored content, which I mentioned just a moment ago. And then the ability to streamline your ECTD viewing right through the suite. So once you bring in your published output, and there's a process for that, you can navigate that ECTD structure within the suite itself, which is a really nice feature and capability. And then it also supports not just ECTDs, but it also supports NIS and paper formats, and there's some configuration that can be done to adapt other submission formats. But at the end, this kind of gives you a high-level summary. And then here's a glimpse of what that looks like from a submission workspace. Again, it's another experience as a user that's leveraging the SSV module, where you still have that searchability, which we talked about earlier. You can, based on your search criteria, you can get to documents or applications down on the bottom left corner. And then in the middle, you have your submission viewer, so you can view that ECTD hierarchy across different modules. And then on the right, you have the ability to look at what correspondence took place that's associated to that regulatory activity, that submission. So it's really bringing it all together in one holistic view and platform in my mind. And here's an example of importing ECTD or NIS, and there's a process around that just to give you a little indication of what that experience looks like. And then I wanted to touch very briefly on the migration aspect. So kind of at a high level, we have customers that are coming from a number of different technologies, historical platforms that are looking to leverage, the life sciences suite. So we have a lot of experience in this area. So migration is a main strength of ours and an investment area that we've had within FME for over 10 to 15 years, I would say, predominantly around our product called Migration Center. And this is where we have the ability to, accelerate, that time to value in terms of implementation of the life sciences suite, the platform, where we can pull in, that master data or your historical metadata dictionaries, data model values, different business rules, adapt that experience to the life sciences suite. So there's a way for us to bridge that gap between where you are currently and where you need to be into the future state with a D2 life sciences implementation. So we bridge that gap with both our experience, so consultation, as well as our product. Migration Center has the ability to marry that together in a mapping approach to get all that data loaded into the life sciences suite. So my main message here is that shouldn't be a reason for you to say, oh no, we have a lot of things to do in terms of data migration. That might mentally delay things for you. What I want you to take away from this is that this is doable. We've done it before, and it's something that is manageable and that we've done. And it's something that should be just part of the implementation strategy and not something that would hinder you from making those very important decisions to bring you to the next level in terms of technology and business process improvement, leveraging this platform. So here are some options. So we have the ability to do in-place conversion. So taking your current Documentum implementation and upgrading that to a version that obviously would be supported with the D2 Life Sciences portfolio. So we have the ability to do it in place. We have the ability to stand up that implementation in a new environment and bring all the data over to that new environment. That would be your kind of the middle silo data migration. And last, depending on where you are in terms of your technology portfolio, if this was a brand new setup, which is fine, we can actually stand up that environment, pristine, and bring content in either on your own, organically, manually, or even with Migration Center, there's the ability to use a few of our modules where you can bring data in off the file shares, or for that matter, using spreadsheet with metadata and content relation to those records on that spreadsheet, so we can help onboard that data into the Life Sciences Suite in that fashion as well. So again, depends on where you are in terms of your investment and your technology portfolio. We can accommodate these different variations in terms of migration. And lastly, validation approach. So the good news about this portfolio, the D2 Life Sciences portfolio, it's a product. So it's a product that has requirements behind it. It has test cases and traceability and all of that validation requirements in terms of package solution. It's all there. And what we as an implementation partner, we leverage that package with OpenText and with our customer. And being able to validate that system, leveraging that material, getting time to value in an expedient way. Again, each customer is going to have some subtle variance in terms of their validation methodology. And what I've seen is customers embrace this validation package as is, so at its face value. But I also seen some adaptations to it to kind of put wrappers around that validation methodology, that part of the suite, covering very specific customer situations. So I think it's a hybrid approach, but at the end of the day, it's a product, it's a solution that's pre-configured, and time to value is very high. High meaning high value and not a long time to take you to that time to value. So getting into an implementation and productive environment in an expedient way. And I think that concludes my portion of the webinar in terms of sharing my knowledge, my experiences, and the life sciences suite at a high level. And I think, Larissa, I don't know if you wanted to speak to the subsequent modules, give a little substance to the team.
Yep, thanks so much, Frank. That was very detailed and a great overview and introduction to the OpenText Life Sciences Suite. So much appreciated. I'll just make one note to folks. If you have any questions, please feel free to direct them in the questions section. So we're happy to take them, any and all questions that you do have. And for the webinar, it does continue. So we're excited about that. We planned our first follow-up for the quality and manufacturing solution on September 13th. So we will be getting that invitation out within the next couple of weeks. So you should be seeing that, and you can register accordingly. And then we don't have the exact dates, but we plan to do one every month thereafter. So the TMF, and then the research and development, and then the submission, store, and view. So you will be seeing these invitations and whatever you have interest in. So also, if you want a demo prior and you need information prior, you can definitely reach out to us either directly or just to our info@fme-us2.com, and we can set something up earlier. So you don't have to wait for these series if there's interest and you'd like a one-on-one demonstration. So that's fine. So with that, if there's any questions, definitely looking to take them. I don't have anything quite yet, Frank, so we'll give everybody a couple of minutes. So we do have one coming in. So can you talk about your experience in helping companies migrate to the life sciences solution?
Sure. This is a very important topic, and I kind of highlighted it a little bit earlier. What we've done and what we've seen is that, companies have different variants of implementation, of Documentum or other technologies for that matter. And the key point there is being able to do an inventory, of what you have in your source system in terms of what type of documentation you're managing. And what I like to do is I kind of call it, level 1, 2, and 3 mappings, if you will. So we look at the metadata on your records in your source system, your documentation, and we correlate those. Okay, this is what that documentation is in the source. And we correlate that, okay, it's this type of artifact, it's a Q&M document, it's an SOP, et cetera. So we basically just create a mapping matrix saying, here's all the documentation you have in your source. We map that to an artifact definition in the target, whether it be a Q&M or an R&D or a TMF document. And once we have that artifact map, we then look at, metadata, what type of product information. So we work with our clients to potentially even harmonize the definition of product, things of that nature, or your clinical trials. And we do a metadata mapping. And that's just the exercise we go through with our customers. And we do that level 1, 2, and 3 mapping, and then we feed that into our migration product, the configuration, and that's where we do the transformation. So we map from the source system to the target system, and then we verify that that metadata is mapped appropriately in our product, so in Migration Center. And at that point, once that metadata meets, the requirements, because we validate that metadata is going to be able to be loaded into the target system. And at that point, we start the life sciences suite and implement the whole suite, or, customers might implement just Q&M to start with. But at the end of the day, for migration, it's really just looking at your source system, identifying what documentation you're managing. We map that to a particular artifact and domain area within the life sciences suite. There might be some enrichment possibly depending on your source system, where you might need to update some metadata as part of the migration methodology. But this is something that we've done time and time again. We've created templates for that. So that's something that's just part of the engagement.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. We have another question that came in. So what would be a good approach for an implementation? And do they need to use all of the modules, or can they be used separately?
I think I mentioned it just a second ago, so that you can start with, depending on what the goals are, what's the immediate need within your organization, but you can do it in a phased approach. So you can implement, Q&M first, maybe if that's what's needed first, and then bring in so you can install the whole suite. If you purchase it all, that's fine. That could all be done in an installation, and you can qualify that installation so it's there from an initial rollout. That's one idea, one way. And then you implement the Q&M module in terms of usage. And then once you're ready to implement the R&D module, then you would onboard. I mean, there's training and all that, change management, and all those types of things that would happen in any company. But from a technology implementation approach, you can do it in phases. You can start with Q&M. You could then go to R&D or in any sequence that makes sense for your organization. But in the end, it's one platform. It's, one suite. They're engineered to work together. So it's a decision for you on how you want to roll it out. But from a technical point of view, you can you can roll out in phases, module to module.
Okay, thanks, Frank. I don't see any other questions at this time. I guess we can give folks a minute here, but if there's any follow-up questions or information you need, again, you can reach out to us directly, our main line, or the info@fme-us.com if questions arise later. So, Frank, it looks like we did good on time. We said 45 minutes.
Okay,
4 minutes left, so that's good. So we do have another one that came in. It says, I know Documentum has some modules for life science, but at the core level, what are strengths and weaknesses compared with LiveLink, especially on workflow development?
I mean, as part of the suite, the life sciences suite, it comes with, pre-configured workflows. So the collaborative edit, the review and approval, the approval workflow, there's a withdraw, there's a suspend, then in quality, there's another one that requires, the change control to be approved. So I would say in the life sciences suite, it's packaged. So you don't need to create the workflows, they pre-exist. So when you purchase the suite, you get all of that workflow capability and that business process that was engineered that's across the different modules. And again, there's some subtleties in each one. But I would say the life sciences suite is a bundled packaged software product that's configurable, if you will. I can't speak too much about the LiveLink implementation personally, but that's something that we can have as a follow-up to look at the compare and contrast, or for whomever asked that question, we can certainly take that as a follow-up. What I could tell you is that the life sciences suite, from experience, and workflow specifically, all of the customers that I've worked with, these workflows are pretty much accomplishing the business requirement in multiple customers that we've implemented it. And it's parallel. So the workflow activities are parallel activities. So when I route a document for review and approval, it can go to one or more reviewers or groups of reviewers, and it can be first person who gets it takes on the activity, or all reviewers need to fulfill the review process. So there's a number of ways that can be configured, but it's more or less out of the box. So I'm not sure if I answered that question directly, but that could be a question that we can follow up on post-webinar.
Yep, absolutely. So I don't see any other questions. Wrap it up. I wanted to say thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge. Frank, we appreciate it.
Hopefully you'll have time in the subsequent year. And how do I get that SOP from draft all the way into to effective? What's that experience, and what's the solution providing in a streamlined way to get that flow through, get it from start to finish. So each module will be able to dive into the details, and looking forward to anyone who's on this webinar to join, those subsequent ones. But they will be recorded in case you can attend, and we'll be distributing. So if you do register and you're not able to join, you'll still get a copy of the recording.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Everybody have a great day, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks again, Frank.
Okay, thank you.